This is the place where the interesting personalities and power players of Kansas come to share their stories. This week, we welcome a Wichita City leader who is wrapped in city pride from head to toe, literally. City Councilman Bryan Frye is known for his love of Wichita flag swag. He often attracts attention for his bold fashion choices that promote community pride. But perhaps this isn't surprising coming from an expert in marketing and public relations. Frye has worked for several years as a marketing director at several local companies, including 2 television stations. Now, in addition to his part-time council gig, Frye works as Senior Director of Investor Relations for the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. He also serves on a number of nonprofit boards. Meanwhile, he has a wife and 2 teenage children to look after, so you can imagine that Bryan Frye is always on the go. Coming up, we'll talk about what drives him to be so involved in community pursuits, and we'll discuss his vision for Wichita as we approach the 3rd decade of the 21st century. Now, this should be a good one. So sit back and relax as we go one-on-one with Councilman Bryan Frye right now. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome Wichita's District 5 Councilman, Bryan Frye, to the program. Welcome.
Thank you, Victor. I appreciate it.
I've heard so much about you, and you were in broadcasting once.
Yes.
Worked for 2 of the local stations.
I did. I started my career in Wichita at KSN, Channel 3, and worked there for 11 years as marketing, creative services, and then changed channels in 2002 and went to work at Cake as marketing director, creative services for 14 years. So a 25-year career in television, but always behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I was not the on-air folks.
So why did you leave?
Because I got elected.
Why did you run? That should be the question.
I get asked a lot. No, I've always been a believer in Wichita and someone who gives back through community service and being a volunteer. And I figured that was the next step to continue my service and career in Wichita, that I needed to be more of a someone doing something. And so the opportunity was there, and I ran for office and won, and tried to juggle both politics and television for a few months, but
Right.
I was burning it at both ends. So I decided that it'd be better if I concentrated on politics and city service.
So do you enjoy politics?
I love serving on city council, and I love representing City of Wichita. Politics are not always fun. They're messy. They can be challenging, but I love serving as a council person and promoting Wichita.
Any future plans for other higher positions?
So first off, I got to get reelected to city council. This is an election year for me, so that's my first priority. And then, that's a long time. That'd be another 4 years of service.
And you would get to that bridge when you cross it.
Exactly.
Or
yeah.
you cross that bridge when you get to it. I think I said that back.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. So have you always been a promoter?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always a big believer in Wichita. Like I said, I started my career, I started serving on boards and fundraisers and nonprofit service. And I always believe in giving back to the community. Part of that is continuing to be a champion of our city and promoting it. And so I never shy away from promoting Wichita.
You've been promoting all right, because you wear the flag as an outfit.
Yes, I do. Yeah, you'll rarely find me without a flag somewhere.
But the suit, the outfit, how did that come about?
So when we walk in parades as a city councilman or city council, most people don't recognize you. And so I think if I want to walk in a parade, I want to get noticed. And so I had the idea with the Veterans Day parade to get one of those suits that are wildly colored, and I found a America flag suit with stars and stripes all over it, and I wore that, and the reaction was so great that I felt like I needed to do something different for the River Festival. And so I called up Fruhoff Uniforms, which is a fourth generation uniform maker here in Wichita. They make band uniforms for high schools and universities throughout the country. And I said, hey, I got a crazy idea. Could you make a Wichita flag suit? And they said, absolutely, come see us. And so a few hours designing it, and then gave them a couple of months to fabricate it, and voila.
And you had your suit.
I have my suit, yeah.
What kind of reaction do you get from wearing that?
A fantastic reaction. Absolutely love it. I wear it for fundraisers. We did a pancake feed last week, and I wore it there. Blarney Breakfast fundraiser for March of Dimes. People love taking pictures with it because there's so much flag fever, right? And Wichita has found something that we can really rally around and show our pride, and you see it from t-shirts to ball caps, tattoos. Now we have license plates.
Right.
And then the flag suit's just another extension of it. So it's been very popular.
So what drives Bryan Frye?
You know, this goes back to when I was a kid and just, you know, believing in the community. And my parents were big promoters of Wichita. My dad was a car dealer, had his own dealership. And, you know, he was very active in the community. And they both were, my mom and my dad are both salespeople. And so they set goals and go to achieve them. And I get that from them. I get that drive from them to be successful and to continue to do good things.
So selling has been in your blood?
Yes, it has been. I never really thought of myself
in
as...
one form or another.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I never thought of myself as a salesperson, but as a promoter, as a
that's
marketer.
selling. That is
and
selling.
It is. It's
yeah.
certainly one aspect of it. But it's just something that I've always done.
So what was your childhood like?
It was great. I was very blessed. My parents have been married for 53 years. My younger brother and I grew up in East Wichita, great childhood, public schools, stayed here and went to Wichita State. So we just had a very good life. We started off, you know, poor, and my parents, because they were successful and achieved good things, you know, we got better over time, and to the point where my dad was able to get his own dealership. And so that was pretty cool, but you know, great, blessed childhood.
I know you stated that you ran for office and got elected, which is true, but how did that interest in politics begin? Where did it come from?
So I think it goes back to when my wife and I first built a house in West Wichita. I got involved with my homeowners association, and all politics are local. Until you've served on an HOA, you don't understand how local they can be. And because of serving on my HOA, I really felt like that was rewarding, because we did some really good things in the neighborhood. And as part of that, I would go to then council member Bob Martz. I would go to his district advisory board meetings and started learning more about what was going on in the city in terms of how we were shaping it and trying to make it better. And that just inspired me to say, you know, well, this is something I feel already very strong about in making Wichita a better place. Maybe this is the next step for me. So that's how it got to there.
So as a council member, how much impact do you feel that you have on the day-to-day life of Wichitans?
Well, there are so many ways. First and foremost, you know, keeping our citizens safe with fire and police protection. That's always been a number one concern of myself, as well as the rest of the council. Then we start talking about infrastructure, from our roads to clean water, to making sure that those things are working properly. Then our quality of life, our parks and our museums and our recreation opportunities. Those are all things that sometimes you forget about them because they're always there, but that takes a lot of work to make sure that they're affordable, that we're planning for the future, so that it's not just forgotten about, because if you don't stay ahead of it, it can catch up on you pretty quick. So those are basic quality of life things that we impact every day. And again, we got to keep focusing on them for the future to keep this a growing and vibrant city.
What is Wichita's biggest challenge right now as you see it?
Not being afraid to take the next step. So there have been times in our past where we've hesitated and said, okay, we're good enough for now. We can relax.
Why the hesitation?
We're a very conservative city, and we don't like to look at things that are going to be very expensive. No one wants to think about the possible implications on taxes or things that you might have to do without. And so we get to a point where things are good. We don't need to rock the boat. Things are going to get better. But we've known that that's not always the case, and that we have to keep pushing forward. We have to keep striving to be better, because our peer cities in the region, from Oklahoma City to Tulsa, Kansas City, they're not stopping, they're not hesitating, they're continuing to push forward. And if we want to keep pace, we've got to be making those tough decisions and making sure that we're doing the next thing instead of saying it's good enough for now. We can't settle. We have to keep pushing. And this goes back to, like I said earlier, setting high goals and then making sure that you're working hard to achieve them. And those are the type of things that we need to be doing as a city.
So what do we have that's unique about Wichita that the neighboring cities don't have, that would bring people to Wichita, that would want to make someone really want to come to Wichita?
I think this goes back to our heritage as a pioneer town and that grit that we had. I mean, this wasn't an oasis in the desert. I mean, this was in the middle of nowhere, and there was a cattle train that came through the Chisholm Trail.
Right.
It wasn't that mountains and ocean and everything. It was kind of out in the middle of this prairie. But because of our forefathers took that gumption and that spirit and were able to carve out a very successful cattle town. And from that, we then became this huge manufacturing town. And so that grit between those two different industries and to succeed beyond expectations, I think that is, and I'm sure other cities can say, their grit and their determination, but when you look at the challenges that we had already to begin with, I think that's what makes us special.
So on a related note, is there a danger when the city becomes too homegrown?
Oh, I think we have to constantly be worried about that, right? We talk about diversification of our economy all the time, and that we can't strictly be an aircraft manufacturing town. Right now, that's going very well, and aerospace and aircraft manufacturing is doing extremely well. But we can't rely on that, because there are going to be downturns. We've seen that in our history, and we know we have to diversify and create other industries and other companies that rise up from nothing and continue to scale up and become the next success story, the next Pizza Hut, the next Coke Industries, the next Spirit. And so we have to constantly be doing that.
So, Councilman Frye, as a councilman, what are your priorities?
We talked about that a little bit earlier. Again, those quality of life issues, those park, recreation, those things that make a community enjoyable. So when you're not working, you have a chance to relax and entertain, make it affordable. Fire and police, and making sure that we're keeping our citizens safe. And then infrastructure, taking care of our basic necessities, whether that be roads, bridges, our sewer system, our water treatment plant. The current one that we have right now supplies water for the entire region, 14 communities, all of our industry, McConnell Air Force Base. It's the only water treatment plant we have, and it was built in the 30s. And so we're in the middle of right now of designing and building a new one, because that's going to be something that hopefully serves for the next several decades and to continue to grow this community.
So if you did not achieve all of those goals as a city councilman, but one of them, what would that be?
Well, that's not a fair question. That's like asking me to tell you which child I love the least because I don't know that I could choose one of those. Infrastructure is so important because that's your tax dollars, right? And being good stewards of the dollars. Public safety, making our citizens feel safe and secure in their homes and in their workplace. And then quality of life, that's what makes the community a community. So I don't know that I could choose one.
So you will work hard to achieve all of them, you say?
Exactly, but and I'd hope that by making this a very safe community, a very affordable community, that some quality of life things could be taken care of by private industry. And so we wouldn't have to do as much on the city side. So that's probably my way of answering that question.
Okay, so if you had the sole excuse me, if you had the sole authority to make Wichita what you would like it to be, describe for us that vision of what you see in the future.
So I think for years we've neglected our river, and we're starting to see increased investment and attention on that. It is such a great asset to have right through the city of Wichita, and I've been in some great cities that really make use of that river, and being able to see more entertainment, more recreational opportunities, more quality of life issues up and down our river to make it more usable, to make it more attractive for investment. That'd probably be a great thing to do, be a top priority, continue to see that development. And again, this still goes back to quality of life because that means so many different things to so many different people, right? It could be a park, it could be a bicycle trail, but it also could just be a safe and secure neighborhood. So everything I say is going to focus around that quality of life.
So tell us, what is your purpose, your purpose of being on the Wichita City Council?
So right now, as District 5 City Council person, it's to represent the 55,000 people in my district. And I take that very seriously in three things that I look at it with everything. One, are we doing projects that we can be proud of? Making sure that we're making investments that are going to stand the test of time, that we can point to and say, you know, this is Wichita, and we're very proud that we have it here. A second thing is, are we making the investments that are going to not necessarily have a great return on the investment, because that's a difficult thing to justify, but that it's going to be sustainable and it's going to last, and that it's not going to be a burden on the taxpayers, so that we're, whether it be a swimming pool or a library, that we're just not putting a bunch of dollars into it and we're not seeing good effects. We want people to enjoy them and get to them and use them. And then finally, just making sure that we've got a safe and secure community, making it desirable for people to want to continue to build their lives here and their businesses.
So what is the meaning of life for Bryan Frye?
This all goes back to my kids and my wife and my family. You know, I want this to be a community that when my kids graduate and they're making their decisions on where they want to live, that they're not ruling out Wichita. And we have such an issue right now with kids graduating and starting their careers in Kansas City or Dallas or Los Angeles, and Wichita was never a consideration. And right now in Wichita we have
Why
more.
is that?
I think it goes back to not investing in ourselves enough and having those moments of hesitation. When we've had opportunity to make this community better, whether it be a new airport or an arena or a library or just simply parks, we've hesitated. And so when they see other communities and other cities doing these type of things, they're like, well, that's an attractive, exciting place to be. I want to be there. And I think we've got to provide those quality of life things so that it makes it a desirable and a choice instead of a non-choice. And so, because what we hear is that a lot of times they do graduate and they start their job somewhere else, and then they want to come back because Wichita is a great place to grow up, and they didn't realize how great it was here until they're gone away. I want to remove that and don't let them get away. We have too many jobs available for our youth and our young people that we need to fill and to continue to make this city grow. And if they're leaving, well, then it's going to be difficult.
So, Bryan, what has been the most defining moment of your life? You've been in television. You grew up around business-minded people, parents, and now you are a politician. What has been the most challenging, the most defining moment?
Balancing that work and play, being able to separate the two. I'm someone who enjoys a good time. I like to get out and do things and be active, and being able to, at the end of the day, still have enough energy to go to the next one and keep on doing it. Being in this position does require some very long hours. It's a part-time position, but it's to do it the right way, it's never part-time. And so you're always having to go from one thing to the next. I don't think I've had a defining moment yet. I hope I still have that yet to be. I've had some very great successes, some things I've been very proud of. But I still think...
What are those?
Oh, wow. Let's see. During my time on the park board, we created the Downing Children's Garden at Botanica. We built Wichita's first dog park. During my time in television, following 9/11, we helped raise over $600,000 locally for victims in New York and Pittsburgh and DC. That was a pretty amazing number. Got to preside over the Olympic torch cauldron ceremony at the Keeper of the Plains when it came through in '96. It stayed the night, and we luckily didn't dunk it in the Arkansas River. So had some really great moments, but again, it goes back to that community service and being able to hopefully make an impact in our community and continue to do good things.
So if you were not a city councilman, would you still be in television?
Probably not. I enjoyed my career tremendously, and I worked with some legends of local broadcast. Many of them who've been on this show and have had the hot seat. Oh, they'll probably handled it better than I have. But probably not. It was a great career. 25 years was a long time. I had the opportunity to work in other markets, but Wichita was always been my home. So if it wouldn't have been politics, it would have been in community service, probably through a nonprofit or something along those lines.
But you also work for the chamber.
Yes, that's my other job.
Your real job?
My real full-time job, and that's the Kansas Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And its mission is to create a pro-business environment so that this is the best state to do business in. And so I help out in the Wichita, South Central Kansas area, recruiting members and gaining more partners. But yeah, that's a full-time job on top of the city council, full-time, part-time job.
Right.
And then I'm on 6 different nonprofit boards right now, so stay pretty active.
So why would anyone want to have a full-time job and yet run to be on the city council or on a part of some political body?
I think you have to have a love of Wichita, right? I mean, you're not doing this for the pay, you're not doing it for the benefits. You're doing it because you want this community to be the best it can be. And that's what's always driven me. Whether it's when I'm in television station or as a city council person or serving on a board. You have to have a love of your community, and you have to make it better for everyone. Like I said earlier, I've had a very blessed career, blessed family, but I know there are people in our community that haven't been as fortunate. And if I can do things as a city council person or as a volunteer to make it better for someone else, that's why you do this job. So
what makes you sad, Bryan?
That our time is almost over? No. I try not to get depressed. It's one of those things that because of this job, you do see some very sad things. When I see a homeless person in Wichita, or someone who's down on their luck, who's had some bad things happen to them, that makes me sad. But I know that what I'm doing, hopefully, can make it better. And I'll figure out a way to, if I can't do something immediately, maybe down the line I can do something So I try not to focus on things that make me sad.
What makes you angry?
So the biggest challenge going from for-profit business to nonprofit government is the speed of business. And
Right.
so being in television, everything is the next 30 seconds, right? You always have that clock.
Deadlines.
You're always watching that. And the speed of government is very challenging. And so I typically want to do things a lot faster and understand that there has to be a lot more openness and transparency and education and more involvement and engagement. And I'm used to just being able to make the decision and go. And so that frustrates me. I don't know that it makes me angry, but it frustrates me. So I'm always looking at ways that we can do to have more red carpet and less red tape.
And so, one final question. If you were to be placed on an island by yourself,
Ooh, that'd drive me crazy.
you will? What one thing you like to take with you there?
Whew. A boat? That's not the fair answer that you wanted, right? It'd probably be a picture of my family.
Why is that?
They're everything. That's why I do everything, for them. So I couldn't do what I do without them. Man, you got me in the reels there, man.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. And thank you for watching this edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment, send us an email at oneononekpts.org. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Take care.